Hi guys, how are you doing today? Welcome back to a random lifestyle vlog. If you're new here, my name is Paulina. This channel is all about beauty and that includes mostly skincare, fragrances and makeup. So today we have another makeup related video and today I'll be testing and reviewing these two new Huda beauty palettes. And I'm actually super excited because, you know, this neutral brown palette, it looks really beautiful. But this greige one, it just looked dreamy. So I cannot wait to open these up and see how they look in real life. So let's do that. So this is the Neutral Brown Creamy Obsessions palette. Both of these palettes contain 8 shades that are like creamy formula and 1 setting shade, which is this one over here. This is the setting one. And then we have like 4 proper mattes, this kind of like a marble shade here, and then 3 shimmery shades. So let's do the swatches like straight away. I'm going to start with the setting shade. So as you can see, this one doesn't really have much pigmentation, but it doesn't need to have. It's just supposed to set your makeup. Now we have the 3 shimmers. This is the first one. And yeah, these are all 3 shimmers. That actually looks pretty good. This one over here gives you this almost like a wet look. I like it. Okay, let's try the mattes now. Okay, 1, 2. Oh, this one didn't really swatch that well. That's fine, it's probably the lightest shade. This one's nice, and there you go. And last but not least, we have this kind of like a marbled shade over here. So there you go, these are all the swatches of this neutral brown palette. And now onto the greige palette. I really hope it doesn't disappoint. So this is the packaging, and look at these shades. This is just so pretty, isn't it? So this is our setting powder. I can only see 2 shimmers and 1 like marble shade, and then the rest of those shades are matte. So let's swatch these now. I'm obviously going to start with this setting shade first, just to see. And as you can see, this one really doesn't really have much pigmentation. Then we have 2 shimmers, followed by some mattes. Again, this was the lightest one, so not very visible, although this one doesn't really seem that visible too. Okay, that's better. And we have 2 more mattes. Oh, and then we have this marbled shade over here. So there you go, these are the swatches. So these are the neutral brown ones and these are the greige. And I have to say, I kind of expected this palette to swatch a little bit better. It does definitely look much lighter than the neutral brown one, so I don't know. I mean, obviously I'm not going to judge just by the swatches. It definitely feels a little bit different because, you know, we have all the cream shades here. So it does feel different. It does look a little bit different. And now let's see how it's going to look on my eyes. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to use one eyeshadow palette to create one eye look and then the other eyeshadow palette to create the look on my other eye. So I'll be probably looking a little bit crazy towards the end of this video, but that doesn't really matter. It's just about like testing these shades and seeing how they look. So where do I start? So let's start with this greige palette. I was so excited about it and I really want to see how this is going to perform. So technically you should be able to apply these eyeshadows both with a brush and with your finger, unless I'm applying like a glittery eyeshadow or I'm doing a mono look, which I very rarely do. I prefer to use brushes for my makeup, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so let's try and test as many shades as possible. So let's start with this shade over here, which is the lightest. I'm going to use this kind of like a denser brush and let's see if that's going to be enough to get any color. Okay, I'm not really sure what to think because I had to use quite a lot of product with this brush and not really much is transferring on my eyelid. So I'm just going to use my fingertip and I'm going to try and apply this base shade with my fingertip. Yeah, that works much better. I mean, this was kind of like to be expected, but obviously these are creamy eyeshadows and you need pretty dense brushes to be able to work with these. So let's continue. Let's use this shade over here. And I'm already using a brush that's a little bit more dense and it does transfer more color, although I think this is one of those palettes that not really going to last that long. Like, look how much of a product I already used up. So yeah, that's definitely something that kind of like needs to be considered here. Okay, so this is where we are. I managed to build this shade up a little bit in my crease here, but honestly the gradient here doesn't really look as spectacular as I thought it would look. But let's move on. Let's use this shade over here now, and I'm going to try and build that shade in my kind of like outer corner. everything is kind of like very pale. I'm going to try and set what I've got so far and maybe try and build, you know, on top of that. Maybe that's going to help a bit with like colors showing up. So I'm going to use more of this shade, try to build it up. Yeah, I guess it probably helped a little bit. Still, this is like a very subtle look. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I do think I kind of imagined this to look a little bit different. But let's not give up yet. I still have a few more matte shades to kind of like add to that. So let's try and build this color up a bit more. I'm going to use this shade over here, and I'm going to apply it in my outer corner again. Okay, so this is what it looks like. I'm actually going to add a little bit of this shade as well, just to see. I mean, as I said, I'm not really going out with this makeup anyway, so let's just try and play with these shades and see how they perform. Okay, now this darkest shade here, I'm going to try and drag it along my lash line. Kind of like pronounce this outer corner a little bit more with it. Alright, so this is what it looks like. I'm going to use this shade over here as well. Why not? I'm just going to apply it in my inner corner too. I feel like it's not really going to hurt. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Now I'm going to use this shade maybe on my like lower lash line, and maybe a little bit of this kind of like lighter shade in my inner corner. And I'm just going to use my finger to apply this kind of like shimmery shade on my eyelid here. Okay, so this is the makeup done with this grayish palette, and what do I think so far? I mean, the shades are really nice, they kind of go well together, so it is pretty easy to create a makeup look that's going to look quite okay. I think I expected something different though. I think I expected this to look a little bit different. I have to be honest, I'm not sure if I love this palette. I mean, as I said, I really like the colors, but I'm not too sure about the formulas. Okay, let's go ahead and let's do the other eye using this neutral brown palette, and let's see how I feel about this one. So again, these are the shades, and as you can see, this one is actually much darker than the greige one. I think there was a very similar situation with the matte palettes that Huda released last year. The cool toned one was much lighter than the warm one, and yeah, this is the comparison. So yeah, definitely this one is much darker. So let's see how this one is going to work. I'm going to begin with, I guess, this shade. This one is probably the lightest. And I guess I'm going to learn from my previous experience and apply this base shade with my fingertips. So let's do that. Okay, so this is what it looks like. It doesn't really offer much like color to my eyelids, but I feel it kind of like evens out the shade of my eyelids. So I guess it's okay for a base shade, right? So learned from my previous experience again, I'm just going to set it straight away. Hoping that the shades that I'm going to apply afterwards are going to perform a bit better. Okay, let's move on to a bit darker shade, which is this one over here. Okay, I'm not going to lie, this is the same story here. Even though this palette looks a little bit darker, I have to use quite a lot of product for this to be even visible, and it takes quite a lot of time as well. Yeah, so you can see for yourself how it looks. I'm actually using a pretty dense brush, so it should pick up the color and transfer it on my eyelids pretty nicely, but this is pretty much what it looks like at this point. So let's use this darker brown shade now, and let's hope it's going to make it look a little bit better. Okay, as you can see, it added a little bit of color. I mean, it kind of like builds up this gradient. It's all very subtle, which doesn't need to be a bad thing, right? But I don't know, I feel like with pressed powder eyeshadows, you can achieve a very similar result, but it all looks a little bit like cleaner. And also it doesn't require as much work and product. So I'm not too sure what to think yet, but let's go ahead and use this marbled shade over here. This one was actually swatched pretty dark, so I'm just going to try and apply this one now to build the shade a bit more. And then lastly, we have our darkest shade of this palette, and again, I'm just going to draw it along my lash line and just work it in my outer corner a bit more. Now I'm going to use the same shade on my lower lash line. I'm going to use a little bit of this shade as well towards my inner corner. So now we have our shimmers. I'm going to try and use at least like 2 of them. So maybe I'll just use this one kind of in the middle of my eyelid, and then the lighter one towards my inner corner. Let's try that. Yeah, this shimmer shade is actually pretty nice. And I'm going to use this lightest one in my inner corner. Yeah, this one is actually really sparkly. I forgot about that. Okay, so we're done. I'm just going to apply some mascara and eyeliner, and I'm going to share my final thoughts with you. Okay, so I'm back with my eyeliner and my mascara. and these are the finished look. So this is the grayish palette and this is the neutral brown. What do you think? I mean, all in all, I think I like both of these makeup looks to some extent. I think both of these palettes offer a really gorgeous color story. So just a quick reminder, this is what they look like. But I'm not too sure what to think about the formula, to be honest. I definitely prefer like pressed powder eyeshadows. I don't really mind formulas like cream to powder. But those like proper creamy eyeshadows, I don't think this is my thing. I guess this could be a personal thing to some extent. Maybe some of you will actually really love this idea. For me, it doesn't really seem to work as much. The whole time I was applying this makeup, I felt like everything looked pretty messy to me, and this is something I pretty much never get with like regular eyeshadows. This could be a very individual thing. I have like partially hooded eyes, so obviously that's not really helping. So I'm actually really curious how these palettes worked for you if you tried them. If you have tested them, please share your experience with me in the comment section down below. So I'm not really sure what to say to finish this video. I am not really in love with these palettes. I love the shades. I think the eye looks are actually pretty okay, but they don't really seem to be working that much for me. So I guess not something I would recommend, but as I said before, this could be a very individual thing, and I don't know, maybe for some of you, these will be like groundbreaking, world-changing palettes. I think I would be extremely happy if I had these two palettes, but in a regular kind of like powdery formula. That would be amazing. Also, the fact that it took me a long time to build the shade on my eyelids, I felt like everything was super subtle, and as I said, there's nothing wrong with that, but do you know when you're trying to build a color and it's still like subtle? This could be a little bit frustrating. And it was a little bit frustrating to me. Also because of that subtleness, I don't think you can achieve that many looks with each of these palettes. I think everything you're going to create is going to look pretty samey. So yeah, these are my thoughts. What do you guys think? Have you tried these palettes? If so, please share your experience with me. Also, with all that being said, I do kind of like both of these looks in the end, so I don't know. Anyway guys, that's everything for me. Thank you very much for watching. For more makeup related content, check those videos over here. I'm going to see you very soon. Take care. Bye.